The smoke rose from the crushed metal in thin, gray threads, curling upward like secrets escaping into cold morning air. Hours earlier, beneath that same bright showroom ceiling, the single father's trembling hands had slipped a cutter under the millionaire CEO's brake line, the sharp metallic snap echoing like the sound of a life breaking apart. Now, as paramedics pulled her motionless body from the wreckage of her luxury car, just half a mile from the dealership, every bystander wondered who could have done such a thing. But only one man stood frozen in the distance, his chest tightening until he could barely breathe, watching the consequences of his desperation unfold in front of him. He hadn't meant for her to die. He had only wanted justice, or maybe mercy, or something he couldn't even name. The world felt heavy, like the sky itself had turned against him. If you believe every story hides a lesson we don't see at first, like, comment, share, and subscribe to Moral Stories. The day had started like any other in his small, crowded life. Daniel, a tired young mechanic with grease permanently etched into the lines of his hands, had woken before dawn to make breakfast for his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. She had smiled despite her swollen eyes swollen from the treatments she needed, treatments he could no longer afford. Their tiny apartment smelled faintly of damp walls and oatmeal, and every morning Daniel hid his panic behind a smile so she'd feel safe. But that morning, after dropping her at school, he drove straight to the dealership where the CEO, Victoria Hale, a woman whose heels cost more than his monthly rent, had coldly denied the insurance claim he needed to keep his daughter alive. She hadn't bothered to look at the stack of medical documents he carried. She had simply dismissed him, her voice sharp, her eyes tired of hearing stories. For her, he wasn't a father drowning, he was an inconvenience. The shame burned so deep it felt like someone had carved it into his ribs. And something inside him, something long starved, something worn down by bills and rejection and fear, finally snapped. Standing alone in the silent service bay, he lifted the cutter to her car. His hands shook violently, not from anger but from love, the kind of love that had nowhere left to go but into darkness. When the line severed, his breath left him like he had broken something inside himself, too. He hadn't thought beyond that moment. He hadn't imagined blood on asphalt or ruined metal or the echoing wail of an ambulance. He had only imagined Lily, alive, because he had done something, anything, to fight for her. But life doesn't bend for desperate men. It breaks them. When he saw her car spin out on the wet road, long after she'd left the dealership, his soul nearly tore out of him. The sound of metal crashing against the guardrail was louder than thunder, louder than guilt. And in that single moment, everything inside Daniel collapsed. He ran, not toward her, but away, away from the truth, away from what he had done, away from the monster he feared he had become. Hours later, as he hid inside Lily's quiet hospital room, he couldn't stop shaking. Machines beeped steadily, almost soothingly, while his daughter slept curled against her stuffed rabbit. He touched her hair gently, wondering how he would raise her from behind prison glass, wondering if she would ever understand why he had chosen the path he had. The weight of regret pressed against him until his breaths came out thin and sharp. The world outside kept moving. He only felt stillness, a stillness that tasted like defeat. Then the door opened. He hadn't expected to see her, Victoria Hale, alive, breathing, standing on crutches with fresh bruises blooming like shadows on her skin. She didn't look like the untouchable CEO from earlier that day. She looked like a human being who had come face to face with mortality. She had survived the crash because a passing truck driver had pulled her from the smoking vehicle moments before it caught fire. She should have been dead. Instead, she stood silently in the doorway, studying Daniel with an expression he couldn't read. She had expected anger when she first saw the cut brake line, rage, even. But as she dug deeper, as she learned who owned those trembling hands, everything shifted. She had discovered the hospital receipts in the Bay office trash bin. The rejection letters. The name of his daughter, scribbled in a shaky handwriting at the top of every page. She had discovered his world, his broken, fragile, suffocating world, and for the first time in years, she felt something crack inside her cold corporate armor. And so she came here, not to punish him, but to face the truth of what her indifference had nearly destroyed. Daniel expected handcuffs. Instead, she walked closer and placed a stack of papers on the foot of Lily's bed, approval forms, grants, medical coverage, everything he had begged for but never received. Her voice trembled as she admitted that his choices were wrong, dangerous, unforgivable, but so were hers. She hadn't listened. She hadn't cared. She had forgotten that decisions made on polished floors ripple outward into messy, fragile lives like his. She didn't forgive him. But she wouldn't destroy him either. Sometimes, the punishment of living with what you've done is heavier than any prison cell. And sometimes, fate gives two broken people a chance to repair the pieces they shattered. She left quietly, disappearing down the hallway before he could speak. And Daniel remained there, staring at the papers with tears blurring the ink, his heart torn between gratitude and guilt. Nothing felt simple. Nothing felt settled. But something painful, something honest, had shifted inside him. Maybe tomorrow he would confess. Maybe tomorrow he would make things right. For tonight, he held his daughter's hand and let the weight of the world rest beside him, instead of on him. If this story made you feel something, pain, hope, anger, or understanding, tap the like button and subscribe for more emotional stories that touch the heart. Before you go, comment below, what would you have done in Daniel's place?